This video is brought to you in association with Fast and Loose, the Formula 1 post-show by AMP. After months of speculation, it's finally been confirmed. Mick Schumacher will not race for Haas in 2023, with Nico Hulkenberg making a full-time return to Formula 1 in his place. It's a decision that's been a long time coming, given Hulkenberg was first linked to the seat in early September. Eponymous team owner Gene Haas and Guenther Steiner gave Schumacher every chance to prove himself, but ultimately decided not to keep him on, both for on and off-track reasons. The second Haas seat alongside Kevin Magnussen was the last vacancy on the 2023 grid, meaning the full lineup for next season is in place. In this video, we will explain why Haas gave up on Schumacher, how good a case he made to stay on, and what made the team choose Hulkenberg instead. On track, Schumacher's performance level has not been consistently good enough to persuade Haas he is worth persevering with. Schumacher's peaks have been good. The trouble is, his peaks are not hit with any consistency. This was underlined by what happened in qualifying at Interlagos. While Magnussen claimed a shock pole position, Schumacher was too conservative on his key lap on slicks in drying conditions at the end of Q1 and was last, meaning he had little chance of scoring points that weekend. In fact, he's only scored points twice, at Silverstone and the Red Bull Ring. That means he's contributed just 12 points to the Haas cause compared to Magnussen's 25. Given his inconsistency and the struggles to put together complete weekends, Schumacher would have needed to show extraordinarily high peaks to have convinced Haas to keep hold of him, given how infrequent they were. But the team felt those peaks were not high enough, and that he was effectively always playing catch-up as he battled to extract speed from the car. Then there's the crashes. While teammate Nikita Mazepin was famous for his incidents in 2021, earning the nickname Mazza Spin, Schumacher was actually the more incident-prone of the two. And those mistakes have carried over into this year. His two big shunts in the first 7 race weekends, one in qualifying for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix and the other in the race at Monaco, put him under enormous pressure. Worse still, it also put a dent in Haas's budget and spare supplies, with the team even deciding not to rebuild the car to let him race in Saudi Arabia, despite having enough components to do so. Schumacher bounced back well from that, but the crash that did the most damage to his hopes of staying on was the one that happened after the checkered flag at the end of FP1 in Japan. He aquaplaned off the track in admittedly difficult conditions, but he was the only one to do so. As for the off-track concerns, every driver has their own management and support network, and there was a feeling that this was at times counterproductive to the objectives of the team. While things had improved lately, it was felt to be too little, too late. The bottom line is that F1 is a results-based business, and the results have not been there for Schumacher. One thing Schumacher has on his side is youth. He's only in his second season in F1, and the first season was in a woefully uncompetitive car that arguably made his learning curve a little too shallow. At 23, he's got plenty of time to improve, so you could argue Haas has been impatient. Ask Mick Schumacher if he's done enough to prove he deserves a place on the Formula 1 grid, and he's adamant that he has. We know this because the race put exactly that question to him in an interview during the Brazilian Grand Prix weekend. Schumacher argues he has proved everything necessary in terms of his speed, both in F1 and with his Formula 2 and Formula 3 championship victories. He's confident that he is capable of winning world championships, given the right chances and a long-term future in F1. There have also been positive signs this season, not just the good weekends, but also the resilience he showed in bouncing back from those early season crashes. Schumacher says he never doubted he would, but that it was good to have the confirmation by the way he responded. But he also points to the frustration of the second half of the season, when problems beyond his control cost points, for example at Zandvoort and Suzuka. The Canadian Grand Prix was a key step in Schumacher's improvement. There, something clicked in terms of the way he was driving the car that helped him to extract more pace. Haas trackside engineering director Io Komatsu says that this phase of the season was one where Schumacher made significant gains, but he also highlighted a key area that needs to improve, which is accelerating progress through the race weekend, as often Schumacher's best performance came in the final stint of the race. So all of this speaks of a driver who has made gains, but just not enough of them. The question is whether he can continue to make those improvements given further chances in F1. This won't happen with Haas, but those positive signs, combined with the fact he is a likeable character, a hard worker, and still has plenty of time on his side, show there is untapped potential there. The question is, how much? No driver can be said to deserve a second chance in F1 if they haven't made the most of the first opportunity, and Haas's reasoning for moving on is sound, even if it is a brutal blow for Schumacher's career. But while Schumacher's insistence he can be a world champion in the future seems fanciful, he has shown that if he gets another chance, there is still more to come from him in F1.
Check out Fast and Loose, the Formula One post-show on AMP, a new live radio app where anyone can host their own audio show. Tune in live immediately after every F1 race as hosts Mika Hakkinen, Will Arnett and Michelle Beadle are joined by a rotating list of insiders, commentators and drivers. Listen, drop comments in chat, or call in to join the conversation. AMP is live radio reimagined. Download the AMP app by clicking the link below and follow @AMPPresentsF1 so you never miss a show. Currently available in the US only.
We've delved into the reasons why Haas didn't want Schumacher, but why replace him with a 35-year-old driver best known for his dubious record of most F1 starts without a podium finish? The answer is simple: performance. Hulkenberg is a proven point scorer in F1's midfield, and points mean prizes. If Haas had two drivers scoring at Kevin Magnussen's level, it would be in contention for 6th in the Constructors' Championship rather than down in 8th. Two positions in the Constructors' Championship are worth over $20 million in prize money. Haas needs points and sees Hulkenberg as the man to deliver them. Hulkenberg is the 20th highest point scorer in F1 history, so he knows how to bring a car home consistently in the top 10. And while he has been on the sidelines in F1 for the past 3 years since being dropped by Renault in favour of Esteban Ocon at the end of 2019, he performed well in his stand-in appearances for Aston Martin. There were some question marks about his fitness when he contested the first two races of 2022 in place of Sebastian Vettel. He did a good job considering he had logged less than 100 laps on the simulator earlier in the year in preparation, but he wasn't at his absolute best. But he's convinced Haas that he's taking his training seriously in anticipation of his return, and that he will gain F1 sharpness once he builds some mileage in a car, something he will start to do in the post-Abu Dhabi Grand Prix test when he has his first test of driving the Haas. The key for Haas was to see evidence that Hulkenberg really was determined to have another crack at F1 and willing to put all of his energy into it. And Hulkenberg has convinced Haas he is willing to lay it all on the line by pushing hard to get the seat, which is exactly what the team wanted to see. There's also no concern about his age, with Steiner pointing out that Fernando Alonso had 2 years away from F1 and is performing at a high level at the age of 41. Haas is more interested in Hulkenberg's mentality than date of birth. Hulkenberg is also expected to have a positive impact on teammate Magnussen. The pair are famous for their high-profile spat after the 2017 Hungarian Grand Prix when they clashed on track, but as Magnussen has said repeatedly, he has no problem with Hulkenberg. What's more, there's also the expectation that Hulkenberg should allow Haas to get more out of the fast but inconsistent Magnussen. After all, he generally had the beating of Schumacher, and there's a feeling that at times he was almost driving down to his teammates' level, whereas it's expected Hulkenberg will push Magnussen harder. As Steiner has said, it's hoped that Hulkenberg will be good for Magnussen too. Hopes are high that Haas will have an even more competitive car in 2023, given its growing design strength under the leadership of technical director Simone Resta. In Hulkenberg and Magnussen, the team is certain it has a driver lineup that will extract more of the car's potential. And to make matters worse for Schumacher, not only has he lost out to Nico Hulkenberg, but the race understands he wouldn't even have been second choice as the team was keen to look elsewhere if Hulkenberg didn't convince them. Ferrari contracted Antonio Giovinazzi was in the mix, although his chances ended when he crashed during his second Haas FP1 outing of the year at Austin. There was also another driver with F1 experience in the mix, potentially Stoffel van Dorn, who Steiner is known to be an admirer of. But with Haas choosing its course by signing Hulkenberg, Schumacher now needs to find a new deal to stay in F1. His one tiny slither of hope for a race drive is if Williams' intended 2023 driver Logan Sargent fails to secure his super licence in the Formula 2 season finale, but most likely he'll end up in a reserve driver role, potentially with Mercedes. If he gets another chance in F1, it will be up to Schumacher to make more of it. After all, being passed over for a driver 12 years your senior, who last had a full-time race seat in 2019, is not a glowing endorsement of your credentials.
This video is brought to you in association with Fast and Loose, the Formula One post show by AMP.